Hello again, friends. We are so happy to be here with you, our Fiction in Real Life podcast videocast with Heather B. Moore, Jen Geigle Johnson, Julie Daines, and Jennifer Moore. We love doing this. We hope you love listening to it because we have no plans to stop anytime soon. So this segue that we're going to talk about today, we're pretty excited about. It follows closely last episode. So if you missed it, go back and watch the 2 week ago episode talking about, it was our Revolutionary War women celebration. And today we're going to continue that talk about Revolutionary War women, spies in the revolution, and some of the things that they used to convey messages, all the intrigue and the secretive ways that they did what they did back then. It's pretty impressive. So to start, we are going to talk about our giveaway, which leads right into Heather's story. So let's do both. Heather, why don't you take that?
Yeah, so our giveaway is a newer book by Amy Harmon called A Girl Called Samson, and it's based on a true story of a young lady that kind of disguised herself and entered the army disguised as a boy. So it's a pretty cool story. Anyway, let's go to the story about her. She actually was just kind of a character, and she became a good shot, and everybody was signing up. I think the age was 17 when you could sign up. And so she decided that the only way she could do that was to, disguise herself and pretend like a man. Actually, in Amy's book, it was really interesting because she had the men around her just kind of call her pretty boy. They had like some little nickname for her because they recognized that she had finer features, but she presented herself as younger. In fact, she acted like she was, I don't know, I'm trying to remember what age she was. I think she was like 20 or 21, but she just said she was 17. So that kind of accounted for her not being, broad shoulder and muscly type of person. But her story is so interesting because she was able to serve, and she made a big difference in what she did. And there was also many other women that did this as well, because as we know, women were not allowed to serve in the army in combat. So, and I want to show you a picture, and it's obviously a sketch, but it shows what she looked like in uniform.
Whoa.
She looks like a tough dude.
Yeah. So, to me, because she just has kind of just the really strong features that she could definitely, I think, pass for a man or a boy, I guess. That picture actually makes her look a little bit older. But anyway, I love the story. I love the idea that women kind of were trailblazers back then, and they kind of took matters into their own hands, which I think for me inspires me, because we all have probably situations in our lives where we feel like we're doing that as well. So I guess the question is if anyone would book that story. Well, okay. So this is a caveat. It's been booked by Amy Harmon, but when I read the author notes at the end, she took a lot of liberties in her story. So you could technically write more of a biographical novel of this girl, of Deborah. And so you could still definitely put out a second book on her. So don't let that stop you.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to go first. I don't know, because it's hard for me to book things when I've read such a good retelling of it. So I know I could take the real events of her life and try to form a different story, but in my head would always be this Deborah Sampson character that Amy Harmon created based on a real character, and it would be hard for me to separate the two. So I don't think I could. Maybe if I gave it 10 years and then came back. But I just admire her, and I respect what she did, and it was risky what she did, and hard. And if even just considering that she had to bind down her womanly parts, and then she'd have to bathe separately, and just the whole thing. Just kudos to her, right? It really, really wonderful. So I can't really book it because of the way I am, but I would like to be able to. What do you think, Jennifer?
I think I'd book it. I might have to change some of just like you said, some of the details, maybe even the time period. It kind of seems like a Mulan story, so you could set that in that's one of my favorite tropes, like a woman dressed up like a man. I just love it. I love that trope. So yeah, I would have to think of a different place to put her or different something to fictionalize it a little more.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And Julie?
I mean, I would love to book it. The sad thing about me is I know so much more about British history than American history. I sort of feel like a redcoat. Like I would be the enemy.
Yeah, you're the bad guy.
Julie Daines, you did not just say that.
I would love to tell a story like that. I also love the trope of cross-dressing and trying to get away with it. Didn't she get like injured and the physician found out or something? I think that's how she got found out.
That's how she got discovered. Yeah.
And so I don't know. What if the
Also,
physician was a cute guy? That's what I'm
Mhm.
saying.
I mean, that's really fun. That's awesome. So kudos to awesome Amy Harmon. She wrote a wonderful book. And one of you can win it if you comment on any of our Facebook pages or on our YouTube. So now we're going to talk about kind of the methods used to spy. And we've got Julie's going to detail some of them, and then Jennifer has one, and then that'll be it for our episode. Julie, you want to go?
Yeah. So I've got this little article I read about the different ways that the Culper spy ring passed along their messages. And we talked a lot about that also in that last episode that we did about the Revolutionary Women. But it's just so interesting the way they're so creative. They're so creative and they're so courageous and determined. So one of the things they did obviously was invisible ink. And, you know, they had like ferrous sulfate and water and a couple different kinds of things that they would use. And then you would heat it up like over a candle, maybe with an iron, whatever you had. And then the words would come through. Or they could also like rub, like if they wrote between the lines of a regular letter, then you could rub it with a special chemical and it would make the hidden writing come out. And they did that a lot. And it wasn't just letters. They would use blank pages in a notebook or flyer or, you know, lists of inventory stuff, a household ledger, any of that kind of thing. And they would use the invisible ink on that. They called it sympathetic stain because it would hopefully save the life of the person trying to transport the secret message, because if they got intercepted, nobody would find out what it was.
That's
So
cool.
this is George Washington's quote: "It would relieve the fears of such persons as may be entrusted to its conveyance." So they called it sympathetic stain. But anyway, the other thing they did, and this was kind of funny, was they did hidden letters. So they would write a tiny little letter of the spy message and then like roll it up and stick it inside the quill of a pen or a button, or, you know, because the buttons were like two pieces a lot of times, or in a bell. They said they would roll it up and put it in like a little tiny bell. And then this one guy, Daniel Taylor, who was a spy for the British Army, was taking a British message, and the Patriots intercepted it. And so he swallowed the bell. And then they gave him like Ipecac or something. So he barfed it back up. And then he hurried and swallowed it again.
Oh my gosh.
Why didn't he just swallow the letter?
But the letter was inside the bell.
In there. All right.
Yeah. So I don't think he could just like slip it out that fast. It was just quick. And it was the little bell, you know, a little tiny jingle bell. So he swallowed it a second time. And they threatened him that if he didn't spit it out, they were going to cut him open alive and take it.
What?
So they let him make him vomit it back up again, and they intercepted the missive. I hope it was something important.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway, that was kind of funny. And then, I mean, it wasn't funny for him because in the end he was hanged, but you know. Then yeah. Oh, and then they would use like these overlaid letters. Oh gosh, what were they called? Mask letters. So they would write something that sounded totally mundane, but then separately someone would send them another piece of paper that had indications of where to cut out. So then you would cut out the shape and lay it over the other letter, and what was left exposed was the information.
That's so clever.
So
I love that. I think it's so clever. And it would be tricky to create, you know?
yeah.
I love it. Thank you, Julie. Okay, so would we book it? I will start because I am kind of booking some of this stuff in my book I'm writing about women revolutionary spy rings / Culper spy ring things. So yes, I would, and I'm trying to. It's a little interesting because you want to put in all of the cool things, right? But then you feel like you're just detailing one spy trick after another and you're trying to write a story. So that's my input so far in my journey of writing this. But Heather, what about you? Would you book it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I book it. Like, I really like all these like spy ideas, and I've written a spy story, but it's a little bit different in the Cold War. But I think it would be cool to use some of these ideas for different books. So definitely it would be intriguing.
That's cool. What about you, Julie?
I think I'm kind of on the same page there, where I don't know that I would necessarily write a Revolutionary War story, but it would be super fun. And I am feeling very motivated to like include some of these little sneaky things into just one of my regular historical romances that I'm writing somehow, for whatever reason. I'm sure I could come up with something.
Well, it's really interesting because like the whole idea of invisible ink kind of started in that time period. So we think it's so normal, but it was new back then. And by Regency era, you know, it was used. So all this stuff would totally.
Yeah, these are all real true things that happened, you know, real true things.
That's pretty awesome. And what about you, Jennifer Moore?
I would book it. And like I said, I've written a revolutionary spy story. I love it. It's my favorite thing. And then I had this big plan to demonstrate something today. So I'll just tell you kind of what it was really quick. And we don't have to decide if we'll book it or not, because it's kind of the same thing like Julie was talking about. But in that show Turn and in the Spy Museum in Washington, D.C., they have these like a hard-boiled egg. And if you write on the shell with whatever substance and then put it over a candle, it burns it into there. And I wasted over a dozen eggs trying to get this, because I was gonna like peel it off and it would say fiction IRL and everybody would be like, but it was a disaster. Like if you take a hard-boiled egg and put it over a candle, black gets all over the egg. And also like liquid kind of leaks out. And so it was really messy. And then the peeling, like you peel it. First of all, you like try to get all the black off, and then you're peeling it and black's getting everywhere and you're pulling off parts of the egg. So whoever did that. And then, so when I looked it up, it said that they've been doing it since the 15th century during the Spanish Inquisition. They could smuggle eggs, people. So they must have been better hard boilers or better peelers or something. But I do have this little thing that I got at the Spy Museum, and it's a revolutionary thing. So I'm going to show you this coin. It's a secret coin. So it just looks like a regular coin, but there's a little hole in it. And I have to wear my glasses to see it. There's a teeny little hole, and you can like put something in there and open it up, and there can be a secret message.
What?
Isn't that cool? So that's my cool spy thing. Not as cool as the egg was going to be, but there we have it.
You get all the prizes for trying that.
We're having egg salad sandwiches for dinner. So yeah.
Well, one thing this just all brings to mind is the incredible Civil War feeling of the Revolutionary War. They were neighbors with people on either side of the conflict, and some people started to care about the war so much that they would put their neighbors and longtime friends and family members at risk, or viewed them as enemies. And so you can understand the need for all the secrecy and how you had to kind of keep some things close to yourself. And if you wanted to fight for freedom in that time period, you had to make sure that nobody knew. Or if you were brave enough to let them know, then you kept your friends close. And it was this just brings to light a lot of feeling in the era that I'm glad. I mean, we have our differences in our country, but I'm glad we're not at that point. You know, no one's civil warring or revolutionary warring. And there is a sense of unity here that they fought hard to create. And I'm grateful that they did, because here we are. And thank you, ladies, for sharing all this awesome spy stuff and Revolutionary War things. Remember, women were there and very important in this time period as well as others. So important to book all the things. But as always, if you have anything you'd like to submit to us, we would love to share your stories. fictionirlauthors@gmail.com. If you have submitted something we haven't yet shared, we're just working our way through picking themes for different weeks, and we hope to be able to find space for the things that you send us. So thank you so much. Keep them coming, and we're so grateful that you're here listening. So please join us in 2 weeks on our fun podcast we do together called Fiction
In
Real
Life.
Thank you, friends.